You're watching us live wherever you are. This is Humans TV Africa, your network that always engages you into uh, programs that are intended to empower you and ensure that we move from one step to another. Now, every Saturday, we are joined by experts on consumer rights issues, and then we discuss, we share, we learn from them. Today, again, we are going to be having Mr. Henry Chimera from Consent Uganda, and of course, we shall be having Mr. Bernard Bwambale. This month, we have been handling food safety issues. Today, we are going to be looking at poverty, the vicious cycle of poverty, and how issues to do with food aggravate poverty problems in the world. In the studio is Dennis Bongwe to do the production, and of course, we shall be honored to be joined by you wherever you are, sharing this episode, sharing, commenting, liking, and of course, subscribing to this channel. This channel is Humans TV Africa. We are registered as a charity, and our intention is to empower people one day at a time, one person at a time, one village at a time. We want to empower people. We have to change, have a paradigm shift, how things are done, especially in Africa. So I want to enjoy your presence, but also want to request you to please continue sharing our shows wherever you are. Our studios in Ghana, our studios in Nigeria, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Uganda, Kenya, and others. We want to encourage you more to share our shows on your Facebook pages so that people can be able to watch and learn. Now, I want to welcome Mr. Chimera to the show, and of course, Mr. Bernard to the show. Mr. Chimera, may you please greet our viewers, but also give us a recap of what we covered. Then Bernard will come in and then give us what we have for today. Please.
Okay, thank you very much, Kato, and thank you very much, your colleagues at the Humanist Africa TV. It is a great honor to always be with you on Saturday for this particular hour. So I would say that the Humanist TV, the way it is Africa, would like to make sure that consumers on the African continent are well informed, aware, make informed decisions, and also do act responsibly. So it is always a great honor with you to have you here. And yet, this is yet another in the series of commemorating the World Food Safety Day. But we at Consent and all our partners, we made sure it is the World Food Safety Awareness Month. So there are a number of activities. Even during the week, we held a number of activities with different partners. I know Bernard will be talking about that. But to start with, and a small recap, colleagues, we started in January, February, March, April, May, and in June, we have dedicated the month to food safety, irrespective of all earlier series looking at food safety. But now we are looking at preparing for the unexpected. During this month, this year's theme is all about preparing for the unexpected. We need to be anticipatory in life. There are many things that we do as consumers, that businesses do, and governments do to prepare for the unexpected, like food reserves are being put in place, issues of coming up with risk mitigation policies and laws, regulations. There are standards on risk mitigation. There are aspects to do with resiliency, so that we are in position to live in tandem with, let's say, the environment, to live in tandem with or to be coexistent in this ecosystem that where we do not endanger each other. So as we talk about food safety, last week we looked at food safety, the case of non-communicable diseases. You'll appreciate that Bernard took us to even bone marrow freezing information. The information he shared with us sent some shivering shocks in a number of us, we got to learn some of the cases and some of the dangers we are faced with knowingly and unknowingly. And today is another episode in which we are going to look at food safety, preparing for the unexpected, the case or the vicious circle of poverty, food safety leading us into poverty. So with that brief, I'll be coming in later also to give a perspective in different aspects, but we will get to appreciate that unsafe food leads to chronic poverty in a number of ways. It doesn't only affect us, the consumers, it takes away the natural resources, it takes away the monies that we have. And when we buy unsafe food, we lose money that we used to pay, we lose taxes. That leads us into a nation not growing, not utilizing its taxes responsibly. We have a health burden. And this health burden, the money is used on health or Medicare doesn't come back. And then we also pass on this foodborne disease burden to even our communities. So you will find that from an individual or an irresponsible, unscrupulous business, then it leads into other challenges of life where the food burden ends up making us poor. So unsafe food is very, it is not sustainable for anybody's social, economic, and also national economy. So today we are going to dive into that. So I would leave the floor to Bernard to do the curtain rising, and then I will also come in and bring in some other contributions from a consumer perspective. So once again, Kato, thank you very much for always bringing us on board and always giving us the platform, not only to talk to consumers in Africa, but also to talk to consumers in the different continents, both developed or developing world, northern, western, southern, and eastern global world. So it is a pleasure. The information that we are sharing with the different consumers, we trust it contributes to the well-being and the health of consumers in other areas. So thank you very much once again, and look forward to our deliberations today.
Thank you, Mr. Chimera. It's always teamwork here at Humanity TV Africa, Dennis, me, and others, to ensure that we continue doing this work. It's teamwork generally. Mr. Bernard, you are going to be taking on from where Mr. Chimera's ended. You are going to now dig into today's theme, how food safety issues deepen our problems and the vicious circle of poverty, especially looking at Africa. Over to you, Mr. Bernard.
Thank you so much, colleagues, for the time, and also thank you for making sure that we share this information with the population out there. How I wish government officials who are responsible for budgeting and for planning for these countries are able to be part of these discussions, so that maybe this could also inform them of where to put money, because sometimes money is wrongly placed. Now, today we agreed that we are going to share more information on the relationship between food safety and poverty, but also I will try now to look at how poverty can also be a risk factor to access to unsafe food, so that we have a balanced equation, and that's why we are calling it a vicious cycle, that it goes back and then it comes back. So it's something that we're going to go into a little bit in the details, but also looking at the science behind these things. So to begin with, last week we reflected on the relationship between food safety and non-communicable diseases. And I was able to try as much as I can to look at aspects to do with the cancers, how cancer is related to consumption of unsafe food, but also trying to look at how diabetes could be also having a relationship with unsafe food, and looking at also other non-communicable diseases that we looked at last week. Now, today, I just want to get that same analysis, but now I attach it with cost to look at how poverty is actually stricken in Africa. And particularly, we shall be using examples from Uganda just to build a context from where most of the listeners can be able to pick an insight. Now, let us begin with the food we eat. Mostly in Africa, if you go to our schools, if you go to the prisons, if you go to our homes, if you go to army, police, etc., there is a high consumption of maize. And if you look at maize, it's one of the foods that are burdensome when it comes to the risk of aflatoxins. Now, when food is poorly handled, especially the cereals, and here we're talking about things like maize, but also you could have aflatoxins in even in silverfish, aflatoxins in milk, aflatoxins in peanuts, etc. Now, the last time we discussed about aflatoxins, we said that aflatoxins are one of the risk factors to the high burden of liver cancer. And I was able to explain that. And of course, I'm going to just give a recap before I can take us to that presentation. When a person consumes food that is high in aflatoxins, we say these are chemical compounds produced by fungus that are always found in food. And many times it manifests as mold. So you get cassava, you get bread, you get peanuts, and etc. And then you find mold on them. Now, every time you see mold, especially that has been produced by a fungus, Aspergillus flavus, and causes that kind of green-like or dark-like mold, it would mean that the fungus has already entered into that food and it's already producing toxins, what we are calling now the aflatoxins. Every time a human being or animals consume food that is high in aflatoxins, the aflatoxins go to the liver for regulation, because the liver is supposed to actually regulate them and discard them. Now, every time they're in high quantities, the liver can fail to actually deal with those aflatoxins, and in the midterm, you can have liver failure, and in the long term, you can have liver cancer, meaning that the cells of your liver have been tampered with, and so they are not able to perform what they are supposed to be performing. So many people have liver cancer, and aflatoxins has been one of the most risk factors to the liver cancers that we have in this country. If you look at Uganda, for example, every year we are registering about 3,700 cases of liver cancer. These are new cases per year that we have registered at the Cancer Institute every single year because of the aflatoxin burden in this country. So people are eating a lot of maize, a lot of peanuts, a lot of milk, a lot of eggs, and people are mishandling these products, and so we are not able to handle them properly, and they end up having this mold. Now, those are the cases we get every year, the new cases of aflatoxin-induced liver cancers per year. Now, every time we have these cancers, we have been we've received research that says every year we lose about 198 healthy life years. Now, these are not lives that die, but when you compute the number of people who are supposed to be productive, the years that they are, when you total the amount of time in years that they are supposed to have contributed to, gives us that figure there, 269,000. Those are the years that people who would be productive lose because of having liver cancer that is coming from aflatoxins, which aflatoxins are coming from as a risk, as a factor of poor food handling. So you can imagine the amount of time that would be productive time, but we lose it. People are not working now. That when you submit people who are sick because of liver cancer, and they are not able to work just because they consumed maize or food that was having aflatoxins, that is the consolidated amount of time that we lose as a country for people not being actively participating in working or in being productive. And you know that every time people are not working or people are not productive, that is already first-class poverty, because they don't have options of where they can actually get an income to make sure they feed their families, they take their children to school, etc. So that is the amount of time in years that we lose because of people suffering from cancer, and specifically the cancer that is associated with aflatoxins, which means that people consumed food that was unsafe. Now, away from that, according to the report of 2018 from PACA, it was estimated that Uganda is likely to lose about $577 million US per year due to aflatoxin-related liver cancers. Why is this so? That one, people will get sick and they're not able to work, which gives us that number of life years they are losing. Two, that government is spending a lot of money in treatment of cancer patients. Of course, that comes to payment of doctors, you know, the resources required to treat cancer, chemotherapy, the drugs, etc. So 500 million is just lost in ensuring that we are managing cancer, but cancer that came because someone consumed maybe maize or groundnuts that were having aflatoxins. Now you can imagine from the economic perspective, this is a lot of money that the country would be investing in infrastructure, in technology, in science, in education, etc. But it's just going to treat a few individuals whom we fed on wrong food. Now, the country cannot develop when we are losing these huge monies in this way. So it makes a lot of meaning that governments and individuals at household level, we need to make an investment in ensuring that we provide safer food to our people. I made some bit of a note down there. Makerere University in 2021, they conducted a study and found out that every time a cancer patient comes from his home and goes to the Cancer Institute here in Uganda, you can spend a minimum of 300,000 just you're going there for a review. Here you're not admitted, you're just coming for a review and they give you medical regimens to take back home. So on average, the lowest person spends 300,000 per visit. Now you can imagine if you're coming every month for a review, and every month you must have 300,000 to come, and that is the money you'll spend out of pocket at the hospital. It is between 300,000 to 800,000. That is the amount of money we are spending in Uganda to ensure that someone accesses attention, medical attention, when they are cancer patients. And this is very sad because these costs are not inclusive of the money you have spent on transport, and if you are admitted, your situation is bad, and all this is when you come and you'll have to go back home. Maybe they just do a chemotherapy, or they have to just review, a doctor has to review you, they have to change a tubing, they have to, so you spend not less than that amount that we are quoting there. Now you can imagine if a family has two individuals that are cancer patients and they have to access this medical care, it means that every month that household must be having 600,000 to bring them. Remember, cancer patients do not go on a border or a motorbike. You'll have to hire a vehicle to bring them to the hospital. That is another cost exclusive of this. So this is how sad it is. And this is how people spend a lot of money in managing and treating cancer patients just because they consumed maize or food that was actually contaminated with aflatoxins. Now that is one scenario for treatment of cancer related to liver cancer, which is related to aflatoxins. Now, away from this, I also shared with you some time back that aflatoxins are also associated with stunted growth among children under the age of 5. So what happens is that when children under the age of 5 consume large amounts of food that have high quantities of aflatoxins, those children, they don't utilize the nutrients that are supposed to be building their brains. So what happens is that now the aflatoxin binds on the nutrients, and then the body of this child is not able to utilize the nutrients for development of the brain. And at the end of the day, the children get less neurons, what the other time I referred as wires. What you are seeing in those pictures If you look at this first picture on the right, you see the brain of the child is having minimal wires or neurons, meaning that the consumption of nutrients to support brain development were minimal. So the brain does not grow, does not have enough neurons to support this brain grow and also to support the processes in the body of the child. So you find that a child has a scanty brain, what we call scanty brain. So the brain is there but has very scanty information transmitters that we are calling the neurons. So when the neurons are minimal, then we say that that child is actually stunted. And when they are stunted, it means that they will not reach their full potentials in life. So when they go to school, just like I explained last time, they are not able to perform well in class. And the child is repeating a class, maybe 2, 3, 4 times, one class. And then the parent is paying school fees for a child who's not progressing to another class. And if that is not so, a child drops out of school. And when this child drops out of school, they go and meet another child, probably of opposite sex, who has also dropped out of school because of the stuntedness. And so the two make a family at the age of 15. When they make a family at the age of 15, you expect that this pregnant girl is certainly going to give birth to another stunted child. Now, we see that in Africa, at least 1 in 4 children are stunted now in Africa. 1 of 4. So when you get 4 children, 1 of them will be stunted. If you move to another slide, I will show you that now when it comes to, maybe you could go to another slide and you see now, if you get 3 children here in Africa, about 58 million of them, children under the age of 5, are actually stunted across Africa. If you move to maybe the next slide, you'll also see that in Uganda, we have challenges of the same. But what is our challenge? The challenge is that once a child is stunted, there will be some bit of inability for them to grow. There will be very low intelligence. Children will keep repeating classes. The performance in school will deteriorate. And then children are not able to learn and they drop out of school and they start getting married early. Now, if you look at another slide, they will tell us that these children who begin primary school, if you have like 4 children in a village and they all go to school and they start classes, it has been found out that actually only 1 in 4 who start primary school will go to secondary school. It is even more unfortunate that even those who go to secondary school, they will never go to the university because of the challenge of stunted growth. So this limits the opportunities in the future to do with, okay, which kind of job is the person going to do? Which kind of innovations are going to come out from such children? Even if you give them money for business, they may not be able to develop that business because their brains are actually not working. They are not well developed. So because of this, if you move to another slide, we indicate that actually now it comes with a lot of challenges in there, that most of the children who have been stunted, they are always at increased risk of infections, and they're also at increased risk of having non-communicable diseases, which are actually a very big risk to the high expenditures in this country. So we tried also to show you in another slide, just to make sure that we have context. I have already mentioned that children who are stunted, they're always having increased risk of developing, non-communicable diseases. Like, of course, we're talking about heart disease, we're talking about diabetes, we're talking about cancers, etc. later in their lives. And so you can have compromised opportunities for these children. At the end of the day, they have minimal incomes, they are always sickly, they are not working, they are not productive. And all of this can drag us back to the disaster of poverty because people don't have the incomes. And it's very unfortunate that in this country, about 54% of adults, so here we're talking about people who have grown, who are supposed to be working, who are supposed to be spending for their homes. It has been found out that actually about 54% of adults in Uganda suffered stunted growth while they were children. And that means that 54% of Ugandans are actually not productive. And that's why the thinking, the innovation, everything is a little bit minimal in this country, just because people are stunted, people are not working, people are not productive. Even those who are working, they are fighting life. And at the end of the day, poverty sets in. And of course, we have also seen that now, because of these reasons I've talked about, we lose about 5.6% of the GDP of Uganda is lost to treat disease, to manage these other simple things that would have treated. So we lose about $900 million every single year, which is about 5.6% of our GDP, due to low productivity and high cost of health, which comes from the stunted-ness that I've just talked about. So you can imagine how much money we would be having if people were not stunted. Now imagine stunted growth has a connection with consumption of unsafe food by our children. So every time a pregnant mother is consuming food high in aflatoxins and safe food, they are likely to give birth to a child who's stunted. When this child continues eating unsafe food, they have challenges, risk of disease, they don't grow well, and then at the end of the day, we spend all that much money in treating what we would have treated when these kids were still very, very young. So that's how governments lose money. This is why families lose a lot of money, and etc. The sad story with stunting is that once stunted, you remain stunted. So studies have shown that stunted growth, people do not reverse stunting. It will just remain there. Once you reach 5 years and above, you just remain stunted. And this is the challenge that we are suffering from as a country. And now you see the amount of money we are spending versus the poverty index in our countries that are suffering stunting. So if you correlate now aflatoxins and stunted growth, unsafe food and stunted growth, you see that actually food safety issues, if well managed and people have access to safer food, people are not going to suffer from these diseases, which are actually taking a lot of money. And maybe to give you another scenario, if we look at, let us look at diabetes. Diabetes is another non-communicable disease that last time I was relating with consumption of unsafe food. Now, in 2021 and financial year 2021-2022, Uganda treated about 676,900 patients of diabetes. These are the known cases of diabetes that were managed in the hospitals that report to government. Of course, there are those clinics and all this that we don't have the data. But the total number of individuals that were treated in Uganda, actually, it has been found out that about 4.2% of the population of Uganda, that population has diabetes. So just imagine if you have 40 million Ugandans, so 4.2% of us are diabetic. Now, if we have 4.2% of the total population being diabetic, the financial report 2021-2022 indicated that we spend 2.2 trillion shillings, 2.2 trillion in management of diabetes only. Now, in terms of non-communicable diseases, that cost is exclusive of high blood pressure, hypertension, cancer, whatever. This was specific for diabetes. The country spent 2.2 trillion in managing diabetes. So you're imagining, why would government spend 2.2 trillion? That is a lot of money that can build, I don't know how many health center force, but was spent on treating just 600,000 individuals who are diabetic. Just imagine only 600,000 individuals who are diabetic, but they're taking 2.2 trillion, not billion, trillion in medication. So this is the amount of money we spend on, buying treatment for these patients, drugs and whatever, for diabetic patients. Now, remember that there are these diabetic patients who will also go into challenges of productivity. Now they are not able to work because they are diabetic. They have to go to hospital every month. Many of them even get amputated, especially those who have now what we call diabetic foot, that someone has diabetes but has eaten up all other, maybe the limbs, and they cut off the legs and the limbs. Some of them have now going into organ failure, others going to other complications. Now that cost is not included in the 2.2 trillion. So you can imagine how much money we just lose because we gave somebody wrong food and they got diabetic. So they ate food, consumed it, and it went and hindered with the insulin secretion or insulin, the operation of the insulin in the body, and someone goes into diabetes. You could find that this person could have eaten this food at a particular restaurant, or maybe over time, this person has been eating this food at a specific spot where he has been buying this food over and over again. And then at the end of the day, our people get sick. They get into high expenditures that they cannot sustain. And at the end of the day, they end up in poverty. So we need to do a lot of work in ensuring that we improve the status quo of non-communicable diseases that are actually associated with food safety. Why should people die when we can actually manage a situation like this? So that's why we are calling upon all of us. It is everyone's responsibility to make sure that we provide safer food for our people. Otherwise, people will go into hypertension, diabetes, the cancers, stunting, etc. And people don't work, people are not productive, people cannot run business, people cannot invest, people cannot save, and at the end of the day, our people die. And when they die, the country loses revenue, the country loses every other thing. And now, because people have become poor because of the illnesses, now that poverty forces them to continually have access to unsafe food, unfortunately. Because they are not able now to buy safer food, now they end up looking for food that is cheaper for them, and many times it is the unsafe food. Because they have no alternative, they're looking for food that will be safe, but they cannot afford it. So they no longer have the money to sustain themselves. And so now they end up looking for any avenue of where they can get something to drop in their mouth as food. So at the end of the day, they end up having access to unsafe food, which continually propels now the challenge they already have. And at the end of the day, they cannot cure. They end up now in the cycle. Unsafe food brings you disease. That disease leads you to having unsafe food. So the process continues and people play in that kind of life. And at the end of the day, we lose the economy goes down, people become very poor, and everything goes to a standstill. So ladies and gentlemen, food safety, food safety, food safety.
Bernard,
thank you.
That was a lesson. It was a lecture, it was a tutorial, it was a lesson to many of us. I was watching you, I was wondering what's happening with our governments. I was looking at the statistics you shared there. We are losing $577 million
yes,
to treat liver cancer. And when I was looking at the figures in Uganda shilling, when we talk about 300,000 to 800,000 for viewers, that is about 60 pounds for 300,000, and it's about 150 pounds at the highest. Now you can imagine that every time this person is going to go to the hospital, is going to pay this much, and this is too much.
Yeah.
Talk about $210 in brief, simply to go and have get checked, but also getting medication is very expensive. Now, when you look at how much people spend on treating themselves, definitely explains why we are always poor, because you are spending so much of your income.
No, just a second. Now, I wanted to put in perspective that now there are those ones whom we are not able to manage, and we have to send to India. We have to send them abroad for specialized treatment. Now that cost is not calculated now. So people will sell their land, the only property they have, etc., to treat their relatives, and even they end up dying. Now you have sold everything and the patient has died. Now you start from scratch. So yeah, we can build from that. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I had a relative who ended up spending over 200 million Ghana shillings, go to India to have an operation, but still died. You know, so much money goes, and then we remain in that vicious cycle. Now, Mr. Kimera, having witnessed, having observed all this, and of course, as a consumer rights activist, we have seen directly what Bernard was sharing. I know you have a lot of issues to ponder here. Over to you now. What is what digging into this kind of reality he has shared with us?
No, thank you very much, Paul, and thank you very much, Bernard. Indeed, like title is, it is a vicious circle of poverty. When you look at all that, it impedes production, productivity, and the livelihood of respective consumers at household, community level, regional and national level. So we will appreciate that unsafe food is really increasing poverty. And if we look at it from a governance perspective, as governments, our governments need to invest good amounts of money to make sure that the food safety control systems are effective. If they are effective, they are in position to anticipate and address the unexpected. Once we have got quality infrastructure, once we have got fully fledged institutions that are in charge of food safety control, then we will be in position in our respective countries to anticipate the unexpected that vagaries coming out of unsafe food. So with all the sharing done, it is very key and to empower consumers as they are a powerful force to make change, to start appreciating that consuming unsafe food will greatly not only impact them as individuals, but it will impact their families, it will impact their community, it will impact nationally. Resources that will have gone to offer other goods and services are going to go into Medicare, and then the food-borne diseases become a great burden to the nation. So it is very key to make sure that the consumers are sensitized, consumers can bring about a change in the agri-food systems, in the circularity of the economy, and make positive change through behavior. So with the increasing population of consumers, increasing demand for food, and you'll find some of these aspects with the acceleration of technology, innovations in the food sector. There are positive, scrupulous businesses, but they are also increasing unscrupulousness that are bringing in unsafe food, which is leading to poverty, where we are, all the savings that we have as consumers in Medicare, and those that are in Medicare are ones benefiting. But unfortunately, like the vicious circle goes, even those who charge exorbitantly in the Medicare might not be eating safe food. So they themselves also can end up also falling sick with the burden of foodborne diseases. Then who will be there to do the Medicare? So it is a vicious circle and it is a challenge. So there is a great need and it's quite a fundamental requirement to empower consumers, increase investment.
Yes, we are hearing you there. Increase investment. We are looking at way forward now, cuts of Mr. Khmer right there. We are asking ourselves, what do we do to handle all these challenges when it comes to food safety?
And more clearly, that unsafe food causes and increases poverty. We have seen the health costs. We have seen the reduction or reduced production and productivity from aspects, because when the unsafe food comes in, we lose it when it is condemned. All the natural resources that all the resources that were invested in producing it ends up unhealthy, then they are all lost. So we have got a triple burden. We naturally, economically, the farmers lose. Environmentally, we lose. And health-wise, we lose. So it becomes a triple burden. So that is reduction in. Then we have still, having said that there is food loss and waste. If you put together the food we lose and waste due to unsafety, then there is enough food in this country or in the global world that can feed the hungry. So this brings in the element, the principles, the elements of food safety, starting with governance, aspects to coordinate all departments, all stakeholders, as food safety is all our business, must be a ringleader. And that ringleader must be the duty bearer, the governments in our countries. The business, the ministries, departments and agencies, the business community, food businesses, then us, the consumers. We all need, but we must have a leader, and that is bearer as in government. Unsafe food does not only affect us individually, but it affects the economies of the country. You'll find that food will not meet national standards. It will not meet the global trade requirement. So that means the brand, the image of a country will be damaged. The other aspects, having trust and confidence of consumers who are the market. These food businesses will lose the trust and confidence, and sick consumers will not be able to sustain the businesses. So looking at the tripartite approach is very key. The duty bearer is in government, put policy in place, put coordination in place, put fully fledged institutions to manage food control in the respective countries in the global world, so that we build trust, we build confidence of consumers to remain healthy, productive as a market, and they sustain the businesses, they sustain the economy. Sick consumers make a sick country, sick economy, a sick planet, whose natural resources are going to waste because whatever is produced is unsafe and makes the consumers unsafe, makes the economies unsafe. So it is a cause that we need to rally more and more to say unsafe food is not good for humanity, it is not good for the planet, it's not good for the economies. As countries to prepare for the unexpected, we need to invest in food sector, quality infrastructure, food grade processing, good marketing procedures, following standards, and ask the consumers, once we get the food in our homes, we make sure we store it well, we prepare it in the right manner, we serve it in the right manner and environment, and consume it in the right way, healthy, sustainable, to make us productive, and we sustain the world. So we will continuously not stop reminding ourselves the dangers of unsafe food. Like I say, food is everything. Food is healthcare, food is medicine, food is joy. We get together as families, as communities, and as we are finishing the merrymaking, the main source of merrymaking is food and beverages. So once they are unsafe, then the merrymaking is unsafe. There is no joy, there is tragedy, continuously leading to blight. So food safety is a national security, is a global security. Once it is not safe, we do not have a sustainable environment, sustainable economy. We do not have sustainable lives. So I would wish to end by saying, duty bearers, let's invest in food safety control mechanisms. to keep our nations safe, productive, with high production that will make the people thrive and make us resilient. So thank you, Oris, and let's continue passing on and advocating for food safety and make sure that the well-being of consumers who are the market is sustained. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khmer there. I was reading your article, one of the pieces you shared on our platform, which you were talking about microplastics found in male testicles. And they are saying that 100% of men's testicles actually have these microplastics, and these are cancer-causing elements. Now, it got me worried. I've been watching news in Europe, I should say. It's not much in Africa, but in Europe. Yet we talked about it in Africa, but let me give you an example of Europe, where I've been following news. As we speak today, there is plastic rice, there is plastic avocado. You know, it's very interesting that even food we grow these days, people have made it plastic. Plastic bananas, plastic avocado, plastic carrots, plastic, cucumbers, and then to make matters worse, there is also plastic fish and plastic chicken. I know you are experts. You might have seen these videos. I've seen enough of them, and I've seen people making testimony that have been buying them in some of the biggest supermarkets in Europe.
Yes,
These are
Paul.
things I've watched.
Paul.
Yes, please.
This is why I told you in one of my submission, with the acceleration in technology innovations, the innovations are they're scrupulous, but what you're raising is the unscrupulousness, the greed in humanity to affect other humans. The greed for money is going to lead to the acceleration in technology to bring in innovations, but these innovations are affecting us. And this is where the ordinary consumer will not know, but the duty bearer with good governance will need to invest in investigations, surveillance systems. All these are elements of food safety control mechanisms. So if Europe is investing a lot in food safety, and these are happening in Europe, just imagine Africa, where we are investing less. And with the heavy burden, look at $571 million annually lost. That means if this continues, there's going to be kind of a global continental demise. And this is where, in some discussions, which are very key, people to go back to agroecology systems, people going back to indigenous foods. So these are some of the aspects that are coming in to have sustainable agri-food systems. So I just wanted to bring that in. But technology has got positives, and unfortunately, such cases are leading technology innovations to be the negative to affect the consumers. And the Bernard shared with you, which you are saying, the microplastic. This are mainly in food industry. And this is why I told you food is everything. The microplastics are all in mainly packaging in the food industry. So this is where we need to rally and talk about safe food in its entirety, packaging, transportation. All these are affecting the quality of food. So I'm sorry for interjecting, but bringing in technology has positives and great negatives by the unscrupulous. Thank you.
That was a good one. Thank you so much. I wanted just to give you a highlight from my perspective, what I've been watching. And I was wondering that if Europe can succumb to the forces of capitalism, to the forces of demand and supply. If some of these supermarkets, not all of them, but some of these supermarkets can sell fake products, but you can buy a banana, it's not a banana. An avocado is not an avocado. Now you can buy chicken, it's not chicken, it's manufactured technologically. And I've been watching this, so I wanted to give you this insight to encourage our viewer that we either reform or continue getting these microplastics into our testicles. As men, for example, going by what we had shared on our platform. So this is how we are. Things are really bad, that we need to empower consumers, empower our viewers to continue being vicious, to continue being attentive to what they buy, because even what you buy from supermarket may not be food, may be something made up. Aisha Ntabade is watching, says thank you, Human CV, thank you, Mr. Kimera and Mr. Bambale. You are doing a tremendous work. Today's episode was so enlightening. Well done. Indeed, food safety is everyone's business. Let's all play our role. Thank you so much, Ntabade Aisha, for sharing your feedback. Let us go to Bambale Bernard. Mr. Bambale Bernard, may you please give us your final word, parting word for today. And of course, I want you to touch on how do we avert this calamity? How do we keep ourselves safe from scrupulous food vendors, food makers? They even make food in their laboratories right now as we speak. So give us some hope, give us some strategies, give us some guidelines on how to beat these food fraudsters, food fraud globally.
Thank you so much, colleagues, for your input. You know, this subject, when you listen to it, you don't want to, you feel like everything is wrong. You feel everything is wrong and you don't know what to do. But there are many things we need to reflect about, of course. Look, I know I'll come back to attempt to answer your question. But one thing also I wanted you to consider while you're looking at poverty is that African countries are encouraging people to go into farming. Now, just imagine we go for farming and then we have animal feeds that are also contaminated. Now, you find that someone has just started, the little money they had saved, the person realizes I'm about to resign, and he starts up a farm. And, you know, he goes and buys food that rather the animal feeds that are actually contaminated, and then you feed your animals, 1,000 birds die on the same day. So you can imagine the investment that the person has put in and collapses in just seconds, just because someone did not handle the feeds very well. Now we're talking about poverty. All that can cause, it can be a very big risk factor to poverty. What about the food rejections? We have seen countries like Uganda where our maize don't surface on any of the markets. Even the vulnerable countries, Southern Sudan rejected our maize. Kenya rejected our maize. Tanzania and Congo, and you know, they have rejected our milk, they have rejected our eggs at some point. Now you ask yourself, a person has invested in agriculture, and they cannot have market for their produce because it is considered unsafe. Probably because of the wrong ways of handling food and etc. So you fail to get money from international markets. So which other money will you get anyway? This is how poverty is digging down into the roots of African countries because of this unseriousness of our, I would say, our governments, our people, mishandling of food. It brings us a lot of poverty. But also, I always ask myself, are governments bothered about this subject? You know, at medical school, when we were still in school, you know, there is this whole subject of someone has died, and so you're doing a post-mortem. And everyone was like, but why do we even do post-mortem? Now, one of the reasons we do post-mortem is really not that we don't know. We cannot tell what has killed the person. I've always given an example. If you're in a bus, look at our setting in Uganda. You're moving to Kasese, you're in a bus. You are 62 people in a bus, and the bus gets an accident, and only one person dies in that bus. So medically, we cannot say that the accident killed the person. Because if the accident killed the person, all the 62 on the bus should have died, because if the cause of death is an accident, everyone who was involved in that accident is then supposed to die. So medically, we cannot say that, no, it's the accident which killed. No. So when we take now such a person for post-mortem, now we are trying to ascertain what exactly has killed the person. It could be that they overbled. So overbleeding becomes the cause of death and not the accident. Now, governments are spending a lot of money on health, but they are not asking a question of why is health burden so high? Why is the cancer burden? And if we take an example of our country, we have something, a principle of buy Uganda, build Uganda, that we should promote what is made in Uganda and we use it. The question is, how many of the food industry machines are actually meeting the standards? Most of the machines made in our country are actually fake. They are made out of iron instead of steel. They are not food grade. And so at the end of the day, our people are promoting Uganda and buying Uganda, whatever it is, at the expense of buying elements that are actually causing disease. So countries have to refocus and think about causes so that they bring solutions to manage the cause. If food safety is the issue, we need to invest a lot of money in making sure that the food we are giving to our people and the feeds we are giving to the animals are actually meeting the standards. And maybe there is misuse. Actually, there is no usage of research these days. If you've realized, countries like Uganda, we've given a lot of research out there, but how many of the countries are taking up our recommendations? If you read the newspapers here, you realize that we reported that there's a lot of transformer oil in food, scientifically proven from laboratories, etc. But have you ever heard of an inspection happening around Kampala to remove the food products that have been prepared with transformer oil? No. We have reported that there's a lot of antibiotics in chicken feeds and whatever, and we've even gone ahead to do research to study animals to see that actually they are antibiotics, ARVs. But how many have you heard the government coming up and say, okay, we are doing a campaign, we are retrieving this? It's not happening. So the question is, why are we even giving research to government? There should be utilization of research being made on the lines of food safety. And I think now the question of who owns these factories and these food industries is another issue. Why we have international laws that govern food, but if a country can allow synthetic food, it means that probably the big boys are in that. And that's where now I need the lawyers to make a case. This is where now you make a case as lawyers. Why are we feeding human beings on synthetic avocado, for example? Why should someone eat a yellow banana, which is plastic? This is a person paying tax on that yellow banana. Is the same person who is going to get sick and then come to the hospital for you to spend on them. So it means that governments have a very big role to play in ensuring that the food we are giving to our communities, to the population, is actually safe. We shouldn't look at food security. Food security is only guaranteed when the food is safe. Because people will come in the name of, no, we are promoting food security, but food security is only complete if people have access to safe and nutritious food. If we don't do that, then we're wasting time. So I call upon the governments to make sure that we invest in real things. We invest in real things. This business of investing in economy, but for you think to improve economy by bringing synthetic food, it doesn't work because that economy cannot grow. People go back to disease and you spend the whole money on treating them. That is one. Number two, regulations, guidelines, policies, and all this must be effectively enforced. We must enforce the policies around. And then three, we must invest in awareness. People are not aware of these things. You know, the other time we got surprised. These things we're talking about, I was talking with Henry and our team, and we were speaking to ministers, and it was like news. Even ministers don't know these things. But we asked them, so how much money have you invested in awareness? If you, the minister, is not aware of such a thing, how much more is my mother in the village not aware? We need to invest in community awareness. We need to invest in capacity building. We should be able to do these things. And we should invest more in how do we, for example, protect the food that people are going to eat, and how much investment have we put. If there is technology to clean away aflatoxins, how much has government picked interest in investing in such. And then our communities, we need to make sure we use all approaches we have to make sure that we reach out to our people as much as we can. I and Henry and our team, we have committed ourselves. Unfortunately, no one can even be willing to fund such things, by the way, unfortunately. But we need a lot of money to reach out to our people. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Bernard Wamba there, Chairperson of Food Safety Coalition in Uganda, and of course, Mr. Kimera there, Henry, Director, Consent Uganda. We are always having them here on Saturday, and then we learn from them. We continue empowering our people on issues they don't want to get elsewhere, especially on social media today, that is so much sensational, so much lost. We need this kind of talks. But unfortunately, these are talks that aren't sponsored, as Bernard was saying, because they don't so they don't interest people. Yet these are talks that actually save lives. We shall continue having these talk shows. We shall continue reaching out to you. Please, when you watch this show, whatever you want, share it with a friend. Share it with a friend, like, comment. Post it more and more to other channels, to other platforms, so people can be able to listen to these things that are so important. I've just told you that things are being made plastic. You know, you can buy food that is plastic, eggs that are plastic, beef, chicken. These are one times we are talking about. So this shows that it's so important to guard you, because you have only one life. We don't want to say we have one life. You live it once. When you die, you die. And of course, as Myanmar says, if it's not safe, it's not food. Thank you so much. I won't be able to say have a parting shot. I think we have had one. We shall be able to link up with you next Saturday again with yet another talk on food safety, being a month of food safety concern. We continue looking at issues that destroy our lives, and continue to see ways through which we can safeguard ourselves from danger. Thank you so much, Mr. Kimera, for being part of us.
Thank you very much, Kato, and we look forward to wind up the Food Safety Awareness Month next Saturday. All the best, and our listeners, it's an honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And of course, Bernard, thank you so much for always honoring these invitations and teaching us, as usual, on matters health. Bernard, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, and of course, Dennis in the studio, and of course, our team, we encourage you to continue to share our episodes on your different Facebook platforms, and encourage people to continue sharing them. Let each one teach one, because through that way, we shall be able to empower ourselves and save ourselves from falling victims to issues, to diseases we can actually avoid. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next episode.